vote often.
It's going to be, no matter what happens, it's going to be a wild day today.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. That's for sure.
Okay, so we learned the Mishnah yesterday, but we'll start the Mishnah again. The Mishnah tells us that the following Nedarim are not going to be Chal as Nedarim, and the reason for them were, the first case was because that's not even an expression of Isser, but the rest of the Mishnah is speaking about someone who's matfis in a dover ha'aser and not a dover ha'nother. The only way you could make a neder by saying my kikar should be like X is if that X became aser through someone's neder. But if that X is an Isser Torah, that will not work for Nedarim. And the Mishnah lists off a whole bunch of items that are aser min Torah. And the last halacha that the Mishnah discusses is, even though any neder that's made improperly has no validity and requires no heter from a chacham, if someone makes a neder against his wife, that requires a heter from a chacham, even if it's not a valid neder. And the Mishnah tells us why. We don't want people making nedarim against their wife. So if you know that if you make such a neder, it's gonna cause you to have to go to the Rav, and then he has to know about your shalom bayis problems, and it creates a discomfort, then you're going to be careful what you say in the first place. Okay, so let's start with the Gemara. The Gemara first focuses on the very first case of the Mishnah. You said chulin sha'ochel. So there's no chiddush in the fact that chulin sha'ochel is not another. I'm not saying any lashon isser. So the Tana must want us to make a diak from this halacha that chulin sha'ochel is not another, to teach us that something else would be another. So let's do that diak. Time of the amar chulin sha'ochel. The whole reason why it's mutter, there's no isser here, is because you said chulin sha'ochel. But ha'amar la chulin sha'ochel, which would be mashma loy chulin lahava ela korban. If you, so the Tana must be telling you that the Tana holds that la chulin sha'ochel, you say mechla lav atosh shemeyahem. It should not be chulin what I eat. Rather, what I eat should be also like a korban. Mani masnisen. Who is our Mishnah going like? Rav Meir, if it's going according to Rav Meir, halesli mechla lav atosh shemeyahem. We've already established in the last pair that Rav Meir holds that every t'nai has to be kitnai god of bnei Reuven, and it has to be at t'nai couple. So you do not say mechla lav atosh shemeyahem. So our Tana cannot be consistent with Rav Meir. So let's try on Rabbi Yehuda for size. Vela Rabbi Yehuda. Well, then Hainu Reisha. Rabbi Yehuda already said this halacha in the last Mishnah. He already said lechulin sha'ochel. We had a Mishnah that discusses this beferish. So why do I need this first case of chulin sha'ochel? What chiddush is the Tana trying to tell us with this halacha? Zok to Gemara, there is actually no chiddush at all. It's just leading in. Adi dekatani kibasa chazir. Kavoidis kechavim. Since it lists off all these other items that don't make a good neder because they're davar aser lahachi katani chulin. That's why it mentions chulin. And the Ram explains. Adi dekatani kibasa chazir. Climber. How dekatani chulin shoichalach. Lav legufay itzrich v'lav lediyuka. The Tana is not telling you a chiddush with the halacha itself, nor from the dik that you would make from it. The agav gerera the sha'ira pasach behachi. Since it's listing off a whole bunch of isser, it starts off with chulin. But there's no real chiddush in the fact that the Tana tells us that chulin is mutter. Ravina wants to say that it's a title. Chulin is a title to the rest of the Mishnah. So chulin sha'oichelach is a title to the rest of the Mishnah as follows. Ravina hachikatani the elu mutarin kechulin. So when the Tana starts at the Mishnah, you don't read the elu mutarin kama chulin sha'oichelach. It's the elu mutarin chulin sha'oichelach. The following list are all going to be mutter just like chulin. The elu mutarin kechulin, kavasa chazir, kavotis kechavim. Freik the Gemara, I don't understand. The Eloi Tana chulin, if the Tana would not have mentioned this title to tell us not stam that it's mutter, but it's completely mutter like chulin, havamina boy sheila. If it wasn't for the fact that the Tana said the elu mutarin kechulin, would I have thought that although it's mutter, but with the rabbanon you still need sheila? That's what I would have thought, and that's why the Tana wanted to really hit it home and say that's mamish mutter without any requirement whatsoever, who would have ever thought that maybe it would require any type of takana, any type of heter? The very end of our very Mishnah talks about just that. And that was a Durabanan Dika Gzeira, so that people shouldn't make the Nedarim against their wife. So obviously, everything up until that point is mutter and gantin without any requirements whatsoever. So once again, why do I need the Tana to illustrate the level of how much these Nedarim have no validity, that the Tana has to illustrate it by saying Kechul? So that's not a good teretz. It's obvious from the second halach in the Mishnah that the earlier cases of the Mishnah require no type of sheilas. So we have to abort Ravina's pshat. We have to go back to our original pshat, that chulin in fact is just there as a lead-in to the rest of the list that aren't valid nedarim. But Avada, there's no chiddush whatsoever in chulin she'oichalach is mutter. That's right. That's right. Zoktamar minanamili. How do we know, Zoktaran, how do we know that matbis bedavar ha'asar loy mitzar? We've been talking about this since the beginning of the Masechta, that the only type of neder that works is if you're matbis in a davar another, but not in the davar asar. Where do we know it from? Omakra, the pasuk tells us, and the Ran makes something very clear to us. I don't need. You might say, what do you mean? What do you mean? How do I know that it doesn't work? V'davar asar. Mehechateshi that it should work. Mehechateshi that's another. So Zoktaran min hasvara, we would say that if you're matpis in a davar hanoder, it will work. That's a svara. I don't need a pasuk to teach us that. So therefore, when the pasuk says Mina namili Amar Kra ki yider neder lashem, that's there's a yider in it, because I already know that I could be matvis in a davar another. So we learn from there achi yader b'davar another only, and not a davar ha'asr. That is how the Ran learns this line of the Gemara. Let's see it inside.
I would say that
I want to thank you so much.
That in the Nedarim, I would know anything by myself, because everything I think almost. I'm like, the Gemara says, okay.
Once the Torah tells us that Nedarim are asur, then I would know that if you're not davar another.
When he asked me,
I hear. So let's see the Heilig around. Amar Krak Yid another, Achid of another. Near Be'ena Zaktaran. The Hachi Perushai, the Svir La Shas, the Gemara holds the La'ashmi Inon, the Matvis Bedavar another Mitzar, to tell us that by comparing what you want to answer to another davar another, I shouldn't even need a pasuk to do that. The Chibin the Amar Kikar Zeh Alai Aser have a nether. We already know from the Torah that if you say Kikar Zeh Alai Aser, that's a nether, without a net pasuk. So if that's the case, logic would dictate Ki Amar Nami Kikarban Aser Ka Amar. If he says Kikarban, it should also be Aser. V'loy Garmi Yadlish, it should be no worse than Yadlish that we know make a good nether. So we shouldn't need an extra pasuk to tell you that you could be matvis b'davar another. So it must be that since the Torah is going out of its way to tell us something that we already know, a lavada krada chayid nether, lav l'davar another also. It's not coming to tell us that being matvis b'davar another is a good nether. Rather, it's coming to tell us that only being matvis b'davar another is a good nether. But if you're matvis b'davar asur, then it wouldn't be a good nether. No, well, depends. We had at the beginning of the Masechta, could be others for from Nazir Lahazer. Right? There was a Shaila, if it's from Nazir Lahazer or if it's from either nether. It was the whole Shaila, which one, and then there's a Hekesh, there was a whole shtickle about it. Because let's see the Gemara. So what does the Gemara say? Amakra Ishki Yidar Net Lashem Ad Sheyidar B'Davar Hanoder. In fact, the Gemara, Ihachi, Afilu B'Davar Tsunami, because you know what it says right before? Did you forget that? Zok the Gemara, lesser Isser mi boyele, L'chedatanya, Eze Isser Amar B'Torah, we need it for a different halacha. What halacha is that? That to tell you that even if what you're being matvis is not usher to everybody, like a real carbon, it's only usher to one person. Like you made a nether on this kikar, who said you could be matzav that's for your new nether? Kamash Shalom from lesser isser, even a personal isser. And the Ram is going to elaborate on that. So let's see the Ram. Let's say a matmas a carbon. That's poshut that it should be a good at poshut because that's mamish usher. But what if I made another on this kikar that should only be usher to me? Can I be matmas on that kikar? That kikar is not usher to everybody. That kikar is only usher to me. So I could be matmas in that kikar as well. That's what we learn from lesser isser. From lesser isser. But let's see the Ran inside. The Ran elaborates. Okay, so let's see the Gemara. Let's see the Ran inside. We'll take a shmak around to learn it.
The second half of that one.
No, I want to continue. The Gemara asked, "Ihachi afilu b'davar asher nami." So being matnas in the davar asher should be a good nether as well. Dachsuv lesser iser. Kloimer dal karchach kol chad legufei yitzrach. Al karchach, you have to say that either nether cannot be extra to tell us that matnas b'davar asher doesn't work. Rather, you need it legufei. The lav lemute. The matvis loy have a nether, since you shouldn't think that matvis is not a good nether. In other words, the Gemara is saying that what we said until now is wrong. I would think that matvis is not a good nether, and I need a pasuk to tell me that matvis is a good nether. Kazer Rachmana, which really was Chaim's original comment. Kazer Rachmana, hani trekroi. You need lesser iser and the nether lashminon. The matvis b'davar another and matvis b'davar aser have a nether. Let's say either one works. The Eloi lesser iser lemay mukbaslay. If lesser iser is not telling you that you could be matvis b'davar aser, then what is the chiddush of the extra lesser iser? The Gemara answers u'mefarkinon lesser iser mitboi lichidetanya izay iser. And once again, the Ran's not elaborating on what it is right now. The Ran wants to focus on our train of thought. Kloimer v'chiv and the efshul ukma lahach drasha lahachi. Since we can use lesser iser to tell us a different halacha, therefore therefore we should. I'm sorry. We should the matbis b'davar aser loy chayil. There's a svara to say that matbis b'davar aser shouldn't work, but matbis b'davar another should work. The bishlam b'davar another motalat pusav aloymar kiker ze alai b'neder kikarbon. I think someone changes the gears on that. I think there was Shash changing the gears on this. The bishlam by another, a person could say kiker ze alai b'neder kikarbon should necessarily nether because it was necessarily they nether. But if you say this should be like chazer, like klumka omer, that's not saying anything. The heichi leimo kiker zel like a basar chazir. How could you say that this kiker should be like basar chazir? Lo yevsher. The basar chazir aser achmana v'hu lo yasrei. So there's a svara to say that matmas b'davar also shouldn't work because you can't make your own isurim. You can't make your own isurim. Masha enkein, if you hop on an issue that you made, that makes more sense. We're about to now. There's actually a very interesting shaila about a regular isser. Isser to eat chazer. Is that an isser gaver or is that an isser chefza? So the Nesivus learns, and that's definitely not agreed by many achrayim, but the Nesivus learns that when you make an isser, you make an isser gaver. When the Rabbanan are making an isser, it's an isser gaver. When the Torah makes an isser, that's an isser chefza. And the Nesivus' argument is very simple. You can accept upon yourself, the Rabbanan could put an isser on you. But how could they change the DNA of an item? If this is not isser, how could they make it into isser? The Torah can make basar chazer into isser because the Torah makes everything. But if be'etzem something's not mutter, how could the Rabbanan change its DNA to make it into something that's isser? All the Rabbanan can say is you shouldn't eat it, but they can't make it into isser. But a lot of people argue on that.
Think about the motion that you said, I would find it different. You know, the reason why it's called chazer because person not see it. So maase the chazer, and when the sheikh is going to come, you're not still in my it's on now.
I don't think anybody. When anybody says a chakaloi b'choyim shiyavai, I don't think anybody ever thought of like. Sagt Gemara weiter. Mit boy, Lichiditanya. Ezel Isser. Lashmin to teach us. The Avagav the Tola Nidroi Beneder Shaloi Neser Elaloi Levadoi. Even though you were telling your nether on something that was not usher to everybody, it was only usher to you. For instance, the Hainu Yoim Shemes Be'avet, right? We said earlier, you were telling your nether in a day that you ushered yourself previously to eat. It's not usher to anybody else. Still Chayal Nidra. And that is the Chiddush. The Lav Haikra, if it wasn't with this pasuk of Lesser Isser, Havamina Ki Yider Neder would be Achi Yider Bedover Shahu HaNoder Lagamri. Sheneser Mikoil Machmas Oishi Neder. I would have thought I could only be matmas in a carbon because a carbon, because of your neder, became usher to everybody. Kamash Blankra, the lesser isser, that even if you were matmas on something that was only usher to you or to one person, that is also considered a proper hatpasa. Very good, very good. Chaim saying very good. How do you see it from these words lesser isser? So saying because it's a lesser isser. It's not so usher, it's a lesser isser. You see, if they do learn English. Yeah. Okay, so let's see the rest is a shaila and a tricha, so it's not directly negeya. But let's learn the le'inyan halacha. Hilchach le'inyan halacha naktinan. The matbis bedavar ha'aser loy have another. So if you say hareza like chazir, that will not aser you. And you don't even need to go to a chacham to be shoyl. Even in Amoritz, who we might have a concern might not be able to make a distinction between what a good nether is and a bad nether, and he might also ignore a good nether because he thinks no nedarim need a Torah, because some bad nedarim don't need a Torah. We're not worried. And if it's not a valid nether, we're not making anybody run to get sheilas chacham. The only place where by an Amoritz we're concerned is by Mader Ishtay Bovad. Because of the reason that the Mishnah says, Adam, a person should be more careful. There's actually a shayla in the Rishonim if it's a Gzer in Hilchos Nedarim or if it's a Gzer in Shalom Bayis. If it's following the Shalom Bayis issue, if we make you run for every little thing to the Chacham, you'll be careful what you say. Avol matvis b'davar another, v'afilu b'davar she'ein another elo loy bilvad chayil, that's chal. V'hanimili matvis b'neder. Avol matvis b'shvua loy mahani. Being matvis by a shvua doesn't help because that's not how a shvua is made. The kaimel on the perak shvua shtayim batra. The matvis b'shvua lav kemochi shvua mipiv dami. The hainu time, and the reason is mishum deneder chol ala chaypetz. She'aser es a chaypetz all of the nether. A nether is an issue you're putting on the chaypetz. Let me just finish around. Kishu matvis chaypetz b'chaypetz. When you're comparing the chaypetz that you want to infect with the other chaypetz that's already infected, royu sheyachol, it's mistaber that it should work. Avol shvua hu oiser atzmai mina chaypetz. Avol guva chaypetz ein olav neder kedusha klal. You're not doing anything to the chaypetz. You're just accepting upon yourself not to have a no or not to eat that chaypetz. Hilchach the omar zeh kozeh with a shvua loy omar klub. That's nothing at all. V'cheinami im omar shaloy oichel basar kiyoyim shemeis be'aviv v'hoyim mushbal oisayoyim. And that day he never made a nether on food. Rather, he just swore that he wouldn't eat. So you're being matvis on a shvua that won't work. Again, loy omar klub. The ba'osayoyim matvis. He's being matvis the day, not him. Ba'osayoyim leke begufei nidra klal. The Ikamandamer, there is a mandamer who holds that the Nehida Matas B'Shvua is Lav Kemoish Shvua Mipivdami, Hanim Nidalin in Karbanu Malkis, Avalisur Mia Ika. But there's still an Isser, even if you express a Shvua in the wrong way. But the Ram says, Viza Edom Achuver, Uchamoish Gashati Syom, Vishata Deshmai, like we learned at the beginning of the Masechta. Today should be also for me to eat, just like last Tuesday, where I made a shvua that I won't eat. Why doesn't it work?
Yeah, you're making a shvua.
I'm making a nether now. I'm making a nether today. And I'm being matvis a day that I made a shvua.
Today I should be used to eat.
Not today should be used. Today should be usher on me. I want to ask for today. Right? I'm making today should be usher on me, like last week, which rather wasn't usher on me. Ich bin usher them. So it doesn't stem.
What's you were last week? Last week
I made a shvua that I wouldn't eat.
So that's the shvua on me.
So if you're trying to make a nether, you can't be matvis on that shua.
When a person says today I shouldn't eat,
He's trying to make a nether. Let's say a person's trying to make a nether today not to eat. And he wants to be matvis. The essence of
the
that,
person say I don't want to eat today.
well, is he trying to make a shavua or a nether? What is he making a shavua? If you make a shavua, works no matter what.
So what's the solution?
What's a lashon of shavua? I swear that I won't eat. Very simple.
This or anything?
Whatever you made a shavua on.
So what would be the difference, the solution of the Shia and the Neder? We said
the difference would be as follows. A shvua would be, I make a shvua that I'm not going to eat cake today. Neder would be, cake should be usher upon me today. So that's one's a
So
lashon, one's a
if the
shvua.
first week you made the Shia, I will.
So last week I made a shvua, I will only eat cake today. And today I decided I don't want to make a shvua, I will make a neder. Cake should be usher on me today, like cake was usher on me last Tuesday. Cake wasn't usher on me last Tuesday. Ich bin gewesen usher the cake last Tuesday. So that's why it wouldn't work. Okay. So now the Gemara goes on to discussing the person who ushered his wife on him.
And I'll tell you also wouldn't do it.
It's a big shaila on how you understand it. There are those who learn that if you express a yad, if you express a shvua b'lashon nedarim, it will work al siyad. There are those who learn that it's like this Rishonim.
I was saying I'm making a major, and I'm not. I say I'm not specific on a shul, right? So why wouldn't this work like a yad on a major?
I'm saying maybe there are Rishonim who hold that it could be a woodwork. Like when the Ran brought down the Ramban that if you express a shvua b'lashon neder or a neder b'lashon shvua, it will work al yad, right? I don't know how weit you use yad, but it's possible that you would use yad even to correct an improper atfos. It's possible that you would. I don't know. I didn't see what the Ramban says beferish on that, but we do know that the Ramban does say that if you express a shvua with the wrong nisach or a neder with the wrong nisach, it will still work because of yad.
That's maybe why the other showing hold that's a good word.
Could be. Could be.
That's why you can't get a card.
Could be. So let's see the Gemara. Or a mini effect Gemara. What is this new type of chiyuv to make Torah? Or a mini? Like the meat of my mother, or kabasar achoshi, like the meat of my sister. Ka'arla, no, because what she cooks you're allowed to eat, right? Lo yamar klum. Okay, now that you're saying that it's referring to the meat that my wife cooks, there was a guy was once a visitor in someone's house, and the fire alarm went off. So he tells the kids, "Oh, there's a fire." They said, "No, it just means dinner's ready." In our house, if the fire alarm goes off, it means dinner's ready. So that's the could be that's trying to also even. So to the lawyer, right? The brisa is giving other cases. So the Gemara says, and the Gemara brings down for brisa, lo yamar klum. It's not a good nether at all, and it wouldn't need shaylos chacham. So that's a steer to our Mishnah that says ki ima does require shaylos chacham. Amar Abaye lo yamar klum midiraisa b'tzarich shayla midirabanan. The brisa is talking about the din diraisa. Midiraisa, of course, this is not a valid nether. Our Mishnah is saying that midirabanan you're mechuyev to be shayl. Rav Amar Haba Talmidei Chachamim Haba Amaretz. Depends on who you're talking about. Who's this?
Because if the ima means like my mother's busami, so it means one thing. Kebusa ima means like you said, like the busa that my mother cooked.
That's not how the Brisa touches it. The Brisa touches is the mama's flesh. Okay. Zog to Gemara. So the Gemara says Haba Amaretz. So let's have a look. Let's have a look at the Ran. The kibin the tani lar maklum mashmash eitzarach shayla klalav afilu midrabanan. So he doesn't like Rabba doesn't like Abayi's pshat because Abayi is saying this is a drabanan from this brayse it's mashma there's no issue at all. So therefore he says that the Mishnah is applying to Amoritz and the brayse is applying to a Talmud Chacham. Now we think you want to be doing it to me I'm a Talmud Chacham. What's qualified as a Talmud Chacham is a very big shaila in the Rishonim and the Achronim I will just tell you that the Beis Yosef and the Ramah, and someone even before the Beis Yosef said that nowadays we're all considered Amoratzim. That's what the Ramah said back then. So Dr. Abramson, who has a little blurb on the daf every day about history, so he's the one who said this. What's the Amoritz? And then he goes into the statistics that in those days, I think he said that there was a 70% literacy rate amongst Eden. That means 30% of Eden didn't know how to read or write. He says even though nowadays it's closer to 100%, but if the Ramah said in his days, and most people are considered Amoratzim, so for sure nowadays if someone made such a neder, it would need She'elas Chochem. You need a lot more than that. Okay, Zok Tehillah Gemara Vayter. So let's see what the Gemara says. Where do you find such a concept that you make Xeris for Amoratzim? But Tanya, we learned Hanoy de B'Torah. If someone made a neder in the Torah, and we'll have to see exactly what the nusach of what he used was, Lo Yomar Klum, it's not a good neder. But Amar Rabbi Yochanan, V'tzarach She'elah Chochem. Even though technically it's not a neder, you need She'elah Chochem. From Rab Nachman, the Talmud Chochem ain't a tzarach She'elah. So you see that distinction of a Talmud Chochem doesn't need it versus an Amoritz. And let's just see the last part at the bottom. V'atanya b'ni chusa, kloimer d'afal gav the tzarach She'elah la'amoritz tani loy omar klum kibin the Talmud Chochem ain't tzarach She'elah. So it's taka not another at all, but there's a derabbanan that an Amoritz needs She'elah. That's what we're going to see on our base. Zog to Gemara. Tanya, we learned. Hanoy de b'Torah loy omar klum. So now we're going to get into the details. If someone was noy de loy omar klum, so let's see the round. Let's just see the first round, the second. How the maskin hacha the b'noy de b'Torah ba'amoritz tzarach She'elah the ilu b'matis b'davar aser. The loy tzarach She'elah klal ela b'nidri ishtoi. So we have a problem. We just said that normally when you don't make a proper neder, even for an amoritz, you're not goyzer, only for nidri ishtoi. And now you just showed me that there's another type of neder that's not said properly that does need She'elah for an amoritz. So then why is it different than the other matbis beiser? Kedali so b'samach. Behind your time is up to run. Mishum de b'noy de b'Torah ika gavni de mitzvah. When you're being noyed about Torah, depending on exactly how you expressed it, sometimes it'll be another deraisa. So since being noyed about Torah is very touchy and detailed, therefore we're going to be machmer for Adnama Oretz, no matter what he said, to require HaTorah. But a normal noda be'isr, where it's clean cut, it's not a neder, we don't have any xeris unless it's for his wife. The small nuances of a difference of how to express this neder, lagabi the Torah, the Amoritz doesn't appreciate those nuances, therefore he might say a neder that's going to answer him. So I know the Torah. So now we finally will get the clarity to the Duvish question. What is a noider b'Torah? The korrelatana lenishba noider. So now the Ran told he's making a shvua. So now it's much clearer. I'm swearing on the Torah that I am going to do A, B, or C, or I'm not going to do A, B, or C. So it's not saying this should be also to me like the Torah. That's not what it is. I'm just swearing by the Torah. There was a Torah in front of him. And he said, I'm swearing on this Torah that I will not do A, B, or C. That's not even a shavuya. Why? You're swearing on the Torah. In Bezdin, when you swear, always was on the Torah. The Torah says because when you normally say that, when you say I'm swearing on the Torah, the daite agavilin kadevinim b'samach. The Gemara is going to explain when you say I'm swearing on the Torah, you mean on the paper, not on the Torah. So therefore, it's not a good shvua. And the Gemara is going to now explain in detail. Tanya, hanoidu b'Torah loymer klum. But what if I made a shvua b'masha kosev ba? I'm swearing on what's written in the Torah. That's already a shvua. Devar of kayam. What if I say I'm noider ba? I'm making a shvua ba u'b'masha kosev ba. So that's like covering all the bases. That's Dvar of Kayamin. That's going to be Dvar of Kayamin. Katani we learned. Bameh shekosev ba Dvar of Kayamin. So if it says that already, so bo b'ma shekosev ba tzarech l'meimar. Why do I need the third case of the Mishnah? If I specify b'meh shekosev ba, it's considered a good nether. Why do I need this third case of the Brisa that bo b'ma shekosev ba Dvar of Kayamin? Amar Machal Lakasha. Ha de Machsa, this is not a recommendation. Ha de Machsa Raisa Ara. This is when the Sefer Torah is on the floor. When the Sefer Torah is on the floor, then you have to say both. Ha de Nakat La Biyadei. That's when you only have to say one is b'mashakosabos if you're holding it in your hands. Machsal Ara, if the Sefer Torah is on the floor, daiti agavili. His intention when he makes a shvu on the Torah is just on the paper. Nakat La Biyadei, but if he's holding it in his hand, daiti al ha'askari shabbat. His intention is on the shemois of HaKadosh Baruch Hu that are written in the Sefer Torah. Now, this is how the Ran learns, that it's a shvuah. The Ran actually is going to bring up shot that I don't want to get into because it's late, that it's actually referring to another, and what it means, Askar Shabbat, is all the karbanos that are mentioned in the Torah, you're being matvish those karbanos. But we're going to stick to shvuah. So let's see how the Ran explains this. How the machsa oraisa al ara, how the nakal tabiyade. Reisha, that's even the nakal tabiyade. Even if you're holding the Sefer Torah in your hand, and you say, I'm making a shvuah on the Torah, that would not be a good shvuah, because the afilu hachi loy amar klum, the my b'Torah de k'amar. What does a person mean when he says b'Torah? Bigvilin sheiksuba. It means the paper that it's written on. But if you said b'Ferish, I'm making a shvuah on what's written in the Torah, that's dvar of kayomin, because clearly the daite ahaskare shabbat v'arehu nishma b'Shem. So he's mamish swearing in the name of Hashem. Avol seifa, the seifa speaking with the machsa irais al ara. The Sefer Torah is sitting on the floor. Askina. Ulefichach ilu amar b'masha kasaba bilvad. If he said only b'masha kasaba, you would still not interpret it as referring to the shemus of HaKadosh Baruch Hu that are written in the Torah. Lo yamar klum. Even the machsa ira, since the Sefer Torah is lying on the floor, Amrina will say the daite agavili. He still means the paper, but he said b'masha kasaba. Dr. Ran, I'll tell you what it means b'masha kasaba. Dachi kamer b'masha kasaba b'Torah. I'm making a shvu on what the Torah was written on, not on what's written in the Torah, on what the Torah is written on. But if he specifies both, now he's covered all his bases. Mahani the chivin number ba for hisker hagavilim the chiyamer b'mashakosaba al korchach daite ahaskoros shabbat. So that's the first shot. The boy yisema, it's the machsalara. In all cases, it's machsalara. Well, that's the Shiloh here, right? That's what we're jockeying around. I'm sorry? I guess so. The Alpagav the Mochsal Ira, even though it's sitting on the floor, Kivin the Amr b'Masha Kosaba, since he said Masha Kosaba Mahani. V'zu ve'in tzarech loimer zukatan. So let's have a look at the Ran to explain. So you have a third shot that no one in the Gemara thought of. So it's a very good shot. So I held that Shrab in the Gemara because there's good shilos over here.
When a person makes stuff,
No, but really, what you're reinforcing is you can't make this up. That's the Gemara because our minds alone would think otherwise, and I agree with that. But I think your point is very well made. That if you try to apply your own cycle to it, we can ask Mechdei Sadoi. That's why we need the different Chazal to guide us.
When a person makes a shmir with them and knows the cycle, and keeps the sky, what does it mean?
Well, there we said the first prayer we said it means if you swear on the Sefer Torah, it means the Torah, means the shemus of the Torah. The boy say with the Machar, Kloimer. Let's say the Kula of the Machalar. Let's say the whole branch, all three halachas, Bo, because of and both are all speaking in one case when the Sefer Torah is on the floor. But if you said b'mesha kasaba, it will be devar of kayaman because that's the second case of the brisa. So why do I need the third case? So zu vein tzarech lemer zukatani. The Sefer the Ketani bo b'masha kasaba devar of kayaman lo tzricha legufa. It's not really a chiddush because if bo alone, if b'masha kasaba alone is a good shua, surely if you said both, it's to tell you that the Reish is also speaking the b'mancha al arahi. The Sefer Vadai, in the Sefer Vadai, Kiva number Bo, Ubamasha Kosaba, we know there, Afilu Manchal Aramahami, right? We know that if you said Bo, Ubamasha Kosaba, even if it's on the floor, it works. So that tells us that the whole Bryce is talking about where the Sefer Torah is on the floor, and therefore, even if you said Ubamasha Kosaba, with the Sefer Torah that was on the floor, that would also be a good Lashon Shvuah. We know, from there we know, the Masha Kosaba Bilchud Nami works Afilu manchal aram mahani lo shvila lachu kimta lo ukuma b'raisa betray gabni. We don't want to say like the first shot where the first cases of the brisa are speaking, where you're holding it, the second is on the floor, and the zu main tzarich lever zukatan. And we have a third shot. V'boy sema kula nami. The word Matthias is taken out. Kula nami the nakat labiyadai. Maybe the whole case is being where you're holding it in your hand. Well, hakamash malona. The chiddush is even the nakat labiyadai. Since you're holding the Sefer Torah in your hands, avagav deloy omar ela ba. Even though he only said ba, command the omar b'masha kasa badami. So now it's changing the pshat in the original pshat. So it's saying that even if you said ba, not b'masha kasa ba, it's as if you said b'masha kasa ba. So let's see the round inside. The kivin the naked la biyadei. Since you're holding it in your hands, avagav deloy omar ela ba, command the omar b'masha kasa badami. So this is how we'll partake the wording of the brisa. The Reisha de Katani hanoy de b'torah le'amar klum b'masha kosev ba dvar of kayamin. That's speaking b'daman chalara. Only if it's on the floor do you say that ba is no good, and b'masha kosev ba alone would be good. Mishum hachi amar ba loy mahani ad ka'amar b'masha kosev ba. Avol seifa is b'denoket la b'yodei askinon. The third case where you said ba u b'masha kosev ba, that's speaking when you're holding it in your hand. And what it means to say is either ba or b'masha kosev ba, either one would be a good nether. Mishumaki katani, the kivin and naked labiyadei, afal gab deloy amar ba, afal gab deloy amar ela ba, command the amar b'masha kosev ba dami. So either one will work. Either one will work. That's the third shot. So in the first shot, if it's manchal ara, you need to say ba b'masha kosev ba. In the second shot, even ba would work, and in the third shot, it's only by if you're holding it in your hand. So let me ask you a shayla. We're talking about putting a Sefer Torah down. You know, some shuls have like a stand, like by the bima, where you put the Sefer Torah, like two holes, and you put the Sefer Torah down. So this shayla was asked to Rav Moshe if that's allowed. And Rav Moshe vehemently came out in the 50s that it's 100% usher. It's 100% usher. He said, first of all, he says, where do we say the Torah? Do we say it from the front of the bima or from the side of the bima? Fine. You know why? It's because it's not covered it to show your back to the Torah. So you're going to put those svarim there, and you can always be showing your back to the Torah to the bas. Second of all, he said, even if you'd be allowed to do it when the Sefer Torah is not in your hands, it's standing up there. It's as if it's standing. So the whole tzibur would have to stand in such a situation. And the third thing he says is, if you don't want to hold it, so you're better off not taking out both Sefer Torah at the same time. Better take out the second Sefer right when you're ready to lay it. But it's a bizoyin that the Torah should stand there tied up. How you talking? It's too hard for you to hold the Torah. Is it that difficult to hold the Sefer Torah for 4 minutes?
I think that's what he really wanted to say.
Rav Moshe came up very strongly against such a practice. But there are those who argue very strongly. There are those who argued very strongly against Rav Moshe. And Adrabah. So what are you going to give it to a child and there's a danger of it falling? And when the guy told him to save Torah, what if he has not proper machshavas? So it's avada better to put it there. So there's actually a big shayla amongst the late Achronim Rav Moshe whether or not that would be appropriate. Well, it's impossible not to, right? Because if it's
You know what?
so you're not supposed to have your back to the Sefer Torah. Even though the Sefer Torah's got your back. And then we have to ask a Rav for. What I'm saying is for entertainment purposes only.
The reason why you're asking very good is because when you bench your shoulders, yeah, that's exactly what the chazan is actually has his back to the.
That's right.
He always pays forward.
Right, because then the chazan is facing the front of the
And
bina.
then he only takes the Torah when he's.
So it could be there's a difference between your back to the Torah when someone's holding it versus when you're back to the Torah and the Torah is just there by itself. So it could be.
He's facing forward.
Not
only after mid-late. Oh,
the time never said that. He exits and I came into the tip. I got a spoon jacket below. So he always sat in the shoe. Mamish
Facing there.
facing the door. So
Look at that. Gesagt wir koinem shani yoshan. Someone said koinem shani yoshan, shani medaber. which we're gonna have to see how these works, because koinim is a lashon neder, shani yoshim is I'll sleep. So what do you mean? I'm making a neder that I won't sleep. So that's something that the Gemara is going to be delving into. Koinim shani yoshim, shani medaber, shani mahalach. I'm making a neder that I'm not going to sleep, I'm not going to speak, I'm not going to go. If someone tells a woman, that's also a good shaila. If the gish is with the yud or without the yud. So the pashut lashon is, our lashon here is without the yud. So I'm making a koinim that I'm not going to be mishamish you. Hareze b'lo yachal devora. These have the issue of lo yachal devora applied to them, and the way I just typed this word is not really accurate. Really, you need to ask right away, why didn't it say osir? If it's a good neder, it should say osir, and if it's not a good neder, it should say mutter, which is what we've had until now. Here, the Tana departs from from the nusach that we've been using until now, and used an interesting nusach of hareze b'lo yachal devora, and that's going to become very clear as soon as we get to the Amud Aleph. Why? Itmar. So I'm sorry? It's a good nether. It's good. So we have to figure out why. So let's see the round first. Koinim shani yoshim. B'chulu gashin shani beloyut. Right, so the round right away addresses Chaim's question. Ub'shavuos gashin shani biyut. In Shavuos, it's not a machlokes. In Shavuos, the Gemara is talking about Hilchos Shavua. Here, we're talking about Hilchos Nedarim. So the Nedarim matvis chefza navshei. Since when you make a nether, you're making a chefza osir, so you're saying koinim shani yoshim. I'm making shina osir upon me. The question is, how could you make an action that's not a chev, it's osir upon you, and that we'll have to deal with. But therefore, tani lahu b'loshen shani, and that's why our mission does not have a yud. Kloimar ma shani. I'm answering upon myself what I'm going to sleep. Umishum the shavuos osir nafshei, and since shavua, you're prohibiting yourself from doing something. Tani leb'loshen she'eni biyut. V'had tana b'nedarim harezeh b'bal yachel divarei. That our Mishnah concludes with harezeh b'bal yachel divarei ub'shvus katani aser. That nefarish b'gemara b'shyata d'shemaya, that will come out very, very clear in the Gemara. So now we're going to get into a little bit of a complex situation, and you have to wonder why people say such crazy things, if not because they want to say a shtickle Torah on it. Itmar koinim eini b'shina hayoim. So right away we've got a lot of clarity. Koinim eini b'shina. What is the nether on? The nether is on my eyes. I'm asking myself to have a no for my eyes when I sleep today. Im ishan lamocher, if I sleep tomorrow. So now I'm in a precarious position, because if I don't sleep tomorrow, sleeping today will be mutter. So the question is, am I allowed to sleep today? Because who said I'm going to fulfill the tonight and sleep tomorrow? Maybe I can sleep today. So Amar Yehuda Amar Rav al yishan hayoim. Do not sleep today. You know why? Because Shema Yishan Lamacher, and that will trigger retroactively the Isser. Come to Chois, that you slept today, you were over an Isser. Right. If he sleeps today, for sure. You're saying underneath. Oh, look, stamp your foot down. Stamp your foot down. In the nether, you're telling me in the nether it's built in. You're going to sleep tomorrow. Very good. Rav Nachman says Yishan Hayoim, sleep today. Rav Nachman Yishan Hayoim, sleep today. We're not concerned that tomorrow you're going to trigger it. However, Rav Yehuda agrees that if you said the koinim eini b'shina l'machar in Yishan Hayoim, what if I said that the Isser is tomorrow, but today triggers the Isser? There's Yishan Hayoim. You're allowed to do that. You're allowed to trigger the Isser. Think about it. It's no worse than making a nether that I'm not going to sleep tomorrow, right? But what's the reason? It's because if you already slept today, tomorrow, in the first case, where tomorrow is just a tonight, so if I already slept today, tomorrow, by sleeping tomorrow, I'm not going to be over another sleeping tomorrow. It's just a tonight that is going to make my yesterday sleep also. That Rabbi Yehuda holds a person might not be so nizarin, because tomorrow he's not really being over this year. He's just doing something that's going to make what he did yesterday into a nizer. That's Rabbi Yehuda is afraid about, and that's why he said, don't sleep today. I will be surah, but if it's mamish and nisr, meaning he made a nether that if he sleeps today, he won't sleep tomorrow, we're not worried that he'll sleep tomorrow, because tomorrow he knows there's an isr nether to sleep. So there's a difference between if there's an isr nether to sleep now, where a person won't do, Rabbi Yehuda says, or if it's only triggering that yesterday was also, that Rabbi Yehuda holds me, I need to be concerned.
That's what's triggering the Torah.
It triggers it. So people aren't nizar not to trigger things, even though it's going to retroactively make it that they were over.
Rather than more careful with
It-
itself.
Exactly. So that's Rabbi Yehuda Shita. If Nachman holds, there's no problem. You're always allowed to sleep. So why is this relevant here? Because the Kohanim Shani Yoshin Shani David that we looked at our Mishnah, we're going to end up saying that it's such a type of case that our Mishnah is talking about. And now it'll become clear why it uses the word of lo yachal b'oroi, because it's not a question of usher and mutter, it's playing with the triggers. So let's see what the Gemara says. Tonight we learned Kohanim Shani Yoshin Shani Mahalach Shani Medaber. Our Mishnah. What exactly is the case of our Mishnah? If it's exactly what it says, Shani Yoshin, mi have a nidra, how could you make a neder on an action? But none we learned, Choimer b'shvuos, shashvuos cholos al dover sheyesh by mamish, al dover she'ein by mamish. A shvu could be chal on an action. It doesn't have to be chal on the chayfetz. Masha ein kin b'nedarim. And nedarim cannot be chal on something that's not a chayfetz. Vishin on sleep, dover she'ein by mamishu. I don't think the Ran ever saw Yeshiva Bocher sleeping with the tris down. But whatever the case is, Shin is a davar she'ein by mamish. So it can't mean, the Mishnah can't mean what it's saying at face value. Ella, it must be the Amar Koinam Eini Bishina. You're putting an Isser on your eyes. Correct the Gemara. How could you put an Isser on your eyes to sleep? The Idalayav She'ira, if you didn't say a limit to how long you're not going to sleep for. It doesn't say how long you're not going to sleep for. It almost sounds that you're saying I'm not going to sleep forever. That's an impossibility. You don't wait until he falls asleep and then say you were over. Rather, that nether is not even chal to begin with, because there's a halacha. If someone made a shuvah, I'm not going to swear for 3 days. You don't wait till he falls asleep. Rather, it's a shavua shav, because it could never have been possible anyway. So malkan oisai, the shavua is not chal. He gets malchus because of a shavua shav, not because of violating a shavua's bitui. The yoshin la'alter, and he can go to sleep right away. He's allowed to sleep because the shavua was never chal. Where does it say? No, we're talking about the Mishnah. We're talking about the Mishnah. That's why the Gemara is not going to say it must be a yard. That's what we're getting. But we're going to stop here. But we learned from here, if you make a nether that's an impossible nether, the nether is not chal at all. If you make a shavua that's an impossible shavua, it's not chal, but you get malchus for shavua shav. But if you make a nether that's impossible, the nether is not chal, just like the shavua is not chal. The only difference is you don't get petch, because there's no such thing as a nether shav. There's an issur to make a shavua shav, but there's no issur to make a nether shav. But in either case, it will have no validity. Okay, we'll stop here and we'll be mamshech tomorrow.